I'm Sarah Jenkins, 36. At Christmas dinner, my brother said kids don't belong here, meaning me. So I left, burned the gift, and then they begged when they realized what I'd destroyed and what it meant for them. If you were my age, have you ever felt invisible in your own family despite giving so much? The chill of the Austin night nipped at my skin as I pulled into Michael's driveway, the wrapped gift clutched tightly in my hands like a lifeline. This wasn't some ordinary present wrapped in shiny paper. It represented years of quiet support, a symbol I hoped would finally shift how they viewed me. I'd invested time and money into their lives, always believing it would carve out a real place for me among them. Stepping out of the car, the faint melody of holiday tunes drifted from the windows, mixing with the crisp Texas air that carried a hint of winter without the heavy snow I'd known in other places. Inside the dining room, hummed with conversation, Michael stood at the head of the table, his gestures broad and animated as he spun a tale, drawing everyone in. Amanda sat beside him, her nod polite, but her smile strained as if holding back. My mother busied herself with napkins, her hands moving with deliberate care. Noah slouched over his phone, fingers swiping without a glance up as I walked in. I scanned the table for my spot, expecting a place card with my name amid the neatly arranged settings. There was nothing, no Sarah Jenkins anywhere. My stomach nodded a familiar twist I'd learned to ignore. I'd covered the costs for much of this evening. The roast turkey glistening on the platter, the tart cranberry sauce, bottles of red wine, and even the decorations, the strings of lights twinkling overhead, and the holly wreaths they'd praised in messages, yet no seat marked for me. "Hey," I said, forcing the corners of my mouth upward as I held up the gift. "Where do I sit?" Michael glanced over his eyes, flicking briefly to the package before waving dismissively. "Oh, just pull a chair from the kitchen," he replied as if it were trivial. Amanda's gaze slid past me to the dessert spread. My mother straightened a fork, her eyes averted. Noah didn't budge from his screen. The gift grew heavier in my arms, the room's warmth failing to melt the cold settling in my chest. I set it on a side table, convincing myself it was an oversight, nothing more. Dragging a folding chair from the kitchen, its metal legs scraping against the tile, I wedged it between two guests. Ryan gave a quick nod. "Good to see you," he said, his tone friendly but distracted as he checked his own phone. I tried slipping into the flow of talk, asking about his recent work change, but the group's attention stayed glued to Michael's stories. He was deep into one about a major client, his voice booming across the table. When I attempted to add a thought, Amanda rolled her eyes subtly and the conversation barreled on without me. So Sarah Ryan leaned in, offering a small opening. Still thriving at work, I nodded, appreciating the gesture. "Yes, staying occupied," I replied, but my words faded amid the clatter of dishes. Michael interrupted, steering back to his latest venture, a deal he claimed could transform everything. I bit my lip, my mind drifting to the gift and what it held. I'd poured so much into his ambitions, holding on to the belief that tonight might change things. But perched on that creaky chair, surrounded by plates I'd funded, I felt more like an intruder than family. My mother finally met my eyes, her expression soft yet distant. "You all right, dear?" she asked, her voice barely rising above the laughter. I nodded the word "fine," tasting sharp on my tongue. Noah continued swiping at his device, untouched by the scene. Amanda reached for more wine, the kind I'd selected. I glanced at the gift still untouched on the side table, and a quiet frustration began to stir. They didn't truly see me, but I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. I'd wait for the perfect moment to unveil what I'd done, hoping it would make them understand my value. As the meal progressed, I passed dishes and forced chuckles at half-heard jokes. Ryan asked about my recent projects, and I started to respond, but Michael's voice overpowered mine once more, reclaiming the spotlight. Amanda smirked, as if my input were an unwelcome interruption. My mother offered a faint smile before turning to adjust the centerpiece. Noah remained oblivious. My fingers gripped the chair's edge, the cool metal grounding me as the sense of being sidelined pressed deeper. The gift sat there, a silent testament to my efforts, but doubt crept in. Would they ever perceive me as I longed to be seen? As plates cleared, Michael rose to refill glasses, his laughter echoing. I watched him, the brother I'd rescued financially, time and again, now acting as if he'd orchestrated this entire evening solo. Thoughts of the hours I'd spent arranging funds, the hope tied to that package flooded me. And still, no named seat, no acknowledgement. My chest tightened, but I suppressed it. The evening wasn't over. I'd grant them one more opportunity to recognize me before deciding my next step. By the fireplace in the living room, the crackle of flames pulled me into reflections of all I'd given. The dinner chatter faded as I stood there, recalling the burdens I'd shouldered for Michael and his family. It went beyond tonight's gift. It was years of being their unseen pillar, convinced that someday they'd value me beyond my contributions. Last summer, Michael's call came late, his tone edged with urgency. He'd accumulated $4,000 in credit card debt payments, stacking up, threatening his car. I transferred the money the next day from my savings, no hesitation, though it meant tightening my own belt. He vowed repayment, but months slipped by with only a cursory thank you via text. I didn't press. I thought it would demonstrate my reliability as family, not just a source of funds. Then there was Noah. Selected for a regional basketball tournament in Houston, a milestone for a 17-year-old, the team required travel support Michael couldn't provide. I purchased his round-trip ticket for $600, adding extra for meals and equipment. Noah sent a brief "appreciate it," but when I inquired about the event's outcome, silence followed. I rationalized it as teenage distraction, but the ache lingered. I'd hoped it would secure me a deeper role in their lives, more than the aunt who covered costs. The most significant was the investment. 7 months ago, Michael pitched his news platform startup, relentlessly needing capital to sustain it. I believed in the potential, or perhaps in his success reflecting on me. Late nights poring over his business plan, suggesting tweaks, he dismissed them, claiming I missed the vision. Still, I proceeded quietly, not seeking praise, just his thriving. But recognition never came. 2 months ago, at a family barbecue in Austin, he'd labeled me the money machine amid laughter, beer in hand. Amanda smiled, thinly silent. Noah smirked eyes on his phone. I brushed it off then, but the phrase wounded. I'd offered so much funds, time, faith, yet to Michael, I was merely a resource. Standing by the fire now, those instances replayed: the cleared debt, the funded trip, the hidden investment. For what, a folding chair at a table without my name? I gripped my glass, the wine I'd supplied, now sour. I'd strived to prove my worth to belong. But Michael's barbecue words echoed over the music. He saw dollars, not a sister. Frustration simmered, but I held it. The gift remained on the side table. Perhaps unveiling it would spark understanding. Maybe Amanda would show genuine regard, mother true pride, Noah, a real word. I breathed deeply, rejoining the table, passing mashed potatoes, forcing engagement amid the noise that excluded me. The fire's warmth lingered as I sat my chair, creaking, the weight of unappreciated efforts bearing down. I'd pinned hopes on this night, but as Michael's laughter rang, I wondered if hope was my only anchor. For now, I'd endure, smiling through the hurt, awaiting the chance to reveal who I truly was. Last summer in Austin, Texas, when I was 36, my brother called late at night, his voice tight with desperation. The phone buzzed on my nightstand, pulling me from a restless sleep in my quiet apartment. Michael's name flashed on the screen, and I answered, already sensing trouble. He explained the mess: $4,000 in credit card debt from missed payments, his car on the line. Panic edged his words as he begged for help to keep it. I listened, my heart sinking, but not surprised this wasn't the first time. Without questions, I agreed, logging into my banking app right then. The transfer went through, swiftly dipping into my savings I'd built carefully over years of steady work. It meant skimping on my own plans, but family came first, or so I told myself. He promised to repay me soon, gratitude spilling out in hurried thanks. I hung up, staring at the ceiling, hoping this gesture would strengthen our bond. Months passed, though, and all I received was a brief text: thanks again. No repayment, no follow-up. I didn't push. Confronting him felt like risking the fragile connection we had. Deep down, I believed showing up financially would prove my place, make me more than just the reliable sister. Before that, there was Noah's tournament. He'd earned a spot in a regional basketball event in Houston, a big deal, for a 17-year-old chasing dreams on the court. Michael couldn't cover the travel, so I stepped in. I booked the round-trip ticket for $600, adding funds for meals and gear to ensure he had everything. The confirmation email arrived, and I forwarded it with a note wishing him luck. His response was, "Kurt, appreciate it." Excitement bubbled in me at first, imagining updates from the games, perhaps a photo or story shared. But after the event, nothing came, no details on how it went, no acknowledgement beyond that message. I brushed it off as teen busyness, but the silence stung, leaving me wondering if my efforts registered at all. The largest commitment came 7 months ago. Michael had been touting his startup idea, a news platform he swore would revolutionize things. He needed capital to keep it afloat, pitching it to anyone listening. I saw potential, or maybe I just wanted him to succeed, to feel like I'd contributed to something lasting in our family. Nights blurred as I reviewed his business plan, jotting notes and suggestions in the margins. When I shared them, he waved them off. "You don't get the vision, Sarah." His dismissal hurt, but I swallowed it, focusing on support over credit. Quietly, I invested $600,000 of my own money, keeping it anonymous. I didn't want fanfare. I wanted him to thrive, to see me as the one who lifted him when it mattered. The funds transferred, and I watched from afar as his project gained traction. No thanks came, no recognition, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd helped. But as time wore on, doubt crept in. Was this building bridges or just enabling? These memories flooded back as I sat at the Christmas table, the creaky chair, a reminder of my outsider status. The laughter around me felt distant, each clink of glasses amplifying the ache. I'd given so much debts, cleared trips, funded dreams, bankrolled, yet here I was, overlooked amid the feast I'd helped create. The gift on the side table held the proof of my latest sacrifice, a chance to reveal it all. But as Michael's stories dominated, pulling everyone in except me, tension built. I forced another smile, clinging to the hope that unveiling the investment would change their eyes on me. For now I endured, but the weight pressed harder, hinting at a breaking point I wasn't ready to face. 7 months ago in Austin, Texas, when I was 36, I invested silently in my brother's dream. My apartment was quiet that evening, the only light from my laptop screen as I pored over Michael's business plan. The document outlined his startup, a news platform he claimed would disrupt the industry. Figures and projections filled the pages, and I spent hours analyzing them, adding notes in the margins about potential risks and improvements. When I emailed my feedback, his response came quick, a call where he chuckled and said, "Sarah, you don't get the vision." His tone was casual, but it landed like a dismissal, making me question my input. Still, I believed in the idea, or perhaps in what it could mean for us. I didn't want applause. I wanted him to rise, to see me as the one who helped him get there. The next day, I initiated the transfer, $600,000 from my savings routed anonymously through the investment firm. The confirmation popped up, a simple email that felt monumental. I dipped deep into my funds, sacrificing personal goals, but the thought of his success kept me going. Weeks turned to months, and I followed updates from afar, seeing the platform gain traction. No mention of my role, no thank you, just the quiet knowledge that I'd been the foundation. It should have been enough, but a part of me yearned for acknowledgement, for the family to know I was more than the background support. 2 months ago, the family barbecue in Austin brought it all to a head. The backyard was alive with the sizzle of meat on the grill, the air thick with smoke and laughter. Michael tossed back a beer, his voice loud as he regaled everyone with startup stories. When the conversation shifted to finances, he glanced my way with a wink. "Connie's the money machine," he said, using my old name by mistake or perhaps on purpose, the words hanging like a label. The group laughed, Amanda covering her mouth with a faint smile, Noah smirking over his phone without looking up. Ryan paused, his brow furrowed, but the moment passed as Michael steered back to his triumphs. I forced a chuckle, the heat from the grill matching the burn in my chest. I'd cleared his debts, funded Noah's trip, poured into his venture, yet I was reduced to a joke. Mother adjusted her plate, avoiding my eyes, her silence speaking volumes. The beer tasted bitter as I swallowed the hurt, telling myself it was just teasing. But as the afternoon waned, the words echoed, chipping at the hope I'd clung to. They saw dollar signs, not the sister who'd sacrificed. Now at the Christmas table, those echoes amplified. The room buzzed with chatter, Michael's voice dominating as he recounted another anecdote. I tried to join in passing the cranberry sauce I'd paid for, but my words dissolved in the noise. Amanda reached for the wine, the bottles I'd chosen, her gaze sliding past me. Ryan leaned over again. "How's work treating you?" But before I could answer, Michael cut in with details of his latest deal. The table's focus shifted, leaving me on the periphery. Mother finally glanced my way, her eyes soft but distant. "Everything okay?" she murmured, barely audible over the laughter. I nodded, the lump in my throat making fine come out strained. Noah swiped at his screen, the glow reflecting his indifference. The gift on the side table caught my eye, its ribbon neat, a symbol of my last attempt to bridge the gap. Anger stirred slowly like embers under ash, but I pushed it down. The night was still young. I'd wait for the moment to show them what I'd done. As plates emptied, Michael rose to refill glasses, his confidence filling the room. I watched him, the brother I'd bailed out, repeatedly acting as if he'd built this all alone. Thoughts of the late nights reviewing plans, the dismissed suggestions, the anonymous funds, all for what? To sit on a folding chair invisible. My hands tightened on my napkin, the fabric twisting. The holiday lights twinkled mockingly, their cheer contrasting the cold clarity growing inside me. Family wasn't supposed to feel like this, a one-sided exchange. By the fireplace, the flames danced, pulling me into deeper reflection. The chatter faded as I stood there, the warmth doing little to thaw the chill. The barbecue words replayed Money Machine. How had I let it go so easily? The investment, the debt, the trip, all unseen. I gripped my glass, the wine, sour now. I'd strive to prove my worth, but perhaps it was futile. The gift waited my final hope, but doubt clouded it. Maybe when he opened it, he'd understand. Maybe Amanda would look at me differently, Mother, with pride, Noah with a glance. I turned back to the table, forcing re-engagement, but the weight pressed harder. The night unraveled slowly, my patience thinning. Ryan tried lightening the mood, asking about my projects, but the conversation veered away. Amanda whispered something to Michael, their laughter sharp. Mother rearranged the centerpiece, her silence heavy. Noah remained glued to his device. I sat there, surrounded by noise, yet alone. The realization hit my efforts were invisible. Anger boiled, but I held it. This wasn't just about the gift. It was years of pouring myself out for crumbs. The party continued louder now, but I felt detached like watching through glass. I'd come hoping to belong, but every moment pushed me further. The fire's crackle behind me mirrored the spark inside, hinting at change. For the first time, I questioned if staying silent was worth it. The dining room glowed under the soft twinkle of holiday lights, the table crowded with half-empty plates and clinking glasses. Michael stood at the head glass, raised his presence commanding as always. The chatter hushed forks, pausing as he cleared his throat with a flourish launching into a speech about gratitude and family. This Christmas, he said, voice warm, I want to thank Amanda for her support, Noah, for keeping me grounded, Mother for her wisdom. He lifted his glass higher and the table erupted in applause, smiles wide and genuine. My name didn't pass his lips, not a whisper about the money I'd poured into his life, the silent backbone of his so-called success. I leaned back in my creaky folding chair, fingers tightening around my napkin until the fabric bunched. The sting wasn't new, but it cut deeper tonight, surrounded by the feast. I'd funded the roast turkey, the cranberry sauce, the wine bottles now nearly drained. Michael wasn't done. He set his glass down, leaning forward, eyes gleaming with pride. Big news, he announced, pausing for effect. My startup just sealed a deal, $600,000 signed and delivered. This is the breakthrough we've been waiting for. The room exploded again. Mother clapped her face, beaming with pride. Noah, for once, looked up from his phone, nodding with rare enthusiasm. Amanda squeezed Michael's arm, her laughter bright. Ryan raised his glass, shouting, "Congratulations," while Uncle Robert let out a whistle from the far end. I forced a smile, but my chest burned like I'd swallowed embers. That deal, he didn't know it, but it rested on my $600,000 my investment wired months ago without a word of credit. I waited, hoping for a glance, a hint, anything to acknowledge my role. Nothing came. Michael basked in the praise, detailing how he'd hustled to secure the contract, how his vision had triumphed. It's all about grit, he said, as if I'd played no part. Mother chimed in, I always knew you'd make it, Noah muttered. Pretty cool, before his eyes flicked back to his screen. Amanda leaned closer to Michael, whispering something that sparked another laugh. The room buzzed with admiration, their voices a chorus that drowned me out. The food I'd paid for sat heavy in my stomach, the wine bitter on my tongue. I was erased a ghost at my own family's table. My hands shook as I reached for my glass, the urge to stand and shout the truth clawing at me. I'd spent years propping Michael up late nights, wiring money, reviewing plans, swallowing his dismissals. For this, to watch him claim my work, I stayed silent, the weight crushing me, but my eyes drifted to the place cards on the table. Amid the cleared plates, one caught my attention, tucked near the centerpiece. My heart stopped. It didn't read Sarah Jenkins. It read Sarah Dawson, the name from a brief failed marriage I'd left behind a decade ago. I reached for it, fingers brushing the crisp paper. Michael noticed his smirk sharp. "What's wrong, Sarah?" he asked, tone light, but laced with amusement. "Oh, that," he said, waving at the card. "Just a mix-up, no big deal." Amanda stifled a giggle, her eyes glinting. The air thinned, my forced smile tightening. They knew my name, my history. This wasn't a mistake, it was a jab, another reminder I didn't belong. I rose, gathering plates to keep my hands busy, the clatter drowning out their laughter, but not the pain. In the kitchen, Michael's voice carried. "Look at Sarah, always great with the little chores," he said loud enough for all to hear. Amanda's laugh followed sharp and cutting. "Yeah, she's got that covered," she added, as if I were hired help, not family. My grip tightened on a plate, its cool surface steadying me. I'd paid for this meal, the wine, the decorations, yet I was reduced to this. Back at the table, I kept moving, collecting silverware, avoiding eyes. Mother fussed with the centerpiece, her silence louder than words. Noah swiped at his phone, oblivious. Ryan paused, holding the Dawson card. "Hey, Sarah, what's with this? Didn't you go back to Jenkins years ago?" His voice was gentle, curious. The table quieted briefly, all eyes on me. Michael shrugged, grinning. "Just a typo," he said, as if it were nothing. Amanda snorted, covering her mouth. Heat surged in my chest, shame and fury twisting together. Ryan's question wasn't meant to wound, but it laid bare the truth they didn't care enough to get my name right. I set the plates down, the clink echoing. "It's not a typo," I said, voice low but steady. "You all know my name." Michael raised an eyebrow, still smirking. "Relax, Sarah, it's just a card." Amanda whispered to him, their chuckles grating. Mother parted her lips, then turned away, adjusting a napkin. Noah didn't glance up. The holiday lights mocked me with their cheer, the warmth suffocating. That card, that deliberate error, felt like a line drawn in the sand. Anger boiled, no longer quiet. I thought of the gift on the side table, the investment contract I'd wrapped with care, believing it would shift their view. Now it seemed like a relic of my own naivety. I'd given everything money, time, heart, and they couldn't even name me right. Ryan tried asking about work again, but his words barely reached me. I nodded, mumbled, kept moving, the weight of their disregard crushing. As I carried dishes to the kitchen, Michael called out, "Don't work too hard, Sarah. Leave some chores for us." Amanda's laugh pierced again. I paused in the doorway, back to the table, hands trembling. The urge to turn and call them out was overwhelming, but I held back. Not yet. I set the dishes in the sink, breathing to steady myself. The night was unraveling, my patience fraying. The gift waited, ignored, a symbol of my fading hope. I wasn't sure how much longer I could stay silent, but for now I'd move forward one step at a time until I knew what came next. The dining room's noise faded as I stepped into the chilly Austin night, the gift, my carefully wrapped investment contract, clutched tightly in my hands. The backyard was quiet, save for the soft crackle of the outdoor fireplace, its flames casting flickering shadows across the stone patio. The cold bit at my fingers, but the heat inside me burned hotter, fueled by the sting of Michael's words, the misplaced name card and the gift shoved carelessly under napkins and empty glasses on the side table. That contract, my $600,000 sacrifice for his startup, had been reduced to clutter, unnoticed and unvalued. I stood by the fire, its glow illuminating the crumpled ribbon. I'd spent weeks preparing this reveal, imagining the moment they'd see my contribution, maybe even thank me. Now the wrapping felt like a mockery of my hope. My chest tightened not with sadness anymore, but with a clarity sharp as the winter air. This wasn't just about tonight, it was years of giving everything only to be labeled a money machine or good for little chores. The family I'd poured my heart into didn't see me, and I was done waiting for them too. Without hesitation, I tossed the contract into the flames. The paper caught quickly pages, curling and blackening the ink of my sacrifice, vanishing in sparks. It felt final, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. My phone was already in my hand, fingers moving with purpose as I opened my email. In moments, I drafted a message to the investment firm, withdraw my $600,000 funding for Michael Hayes' startup, effective immediately. I hit send, my pulse steady but fierce. This was my line drawn in the fire. Back inside the dining room had quieted the clinking glasses softer now. I stood in the doorway, phone in hand, watching them. Michael was mid-story, trying to reclaim the room's energy, dismissing my earlier words about the name card as overreaction. Amanda nodded, her eyes rolling slightly. Mother looked uneasy, her fingers fidgeting with a napkin. Noah swiped at his phone, detached as ever. Then my phone buzzed. 30 minutes after my email, a reply from the firm, funding withdrawal confirmed. Contract terminated. I stepped forward, my voice cutting through their chatter like a blade. "It's done," I said, holding up the phone, reading the email aloud. "Your deal, Michael, is gone." The room froze. Michael's face paled, his mouth open but wordless. Mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Sarah, what have you done?" she whispered, voice trembling. Amanda's smirk vanished, replaced by wide-eyed shock. Noah's phone slipped from his hands, his eyes locked on me, seeing me for the first time that night. Ryan sat silent, his expression unreadable. The silence felt like victory, heavy and undeniable. For once, I wasn't invisible. Michael stammered, "You can't, you wouldn't." But I cut him off. "I did," I said, calm but unyielding. Their shock was palpable, a mix of disbelief and dawning realization. They thought I'd bluffed that I'd stay the quiet sister who paid the bills. But the fire outside had burned more than paper, it had burned my need for their approval. I turned, stepping back into the night, the cold air sharp against my skin. The stars above Austin glittered, unburdened by the weight I'd carried inside. For years, I'd given them everything, money, time, hope, and received only scorn. Now they'd feel the cost of their indifference. The flames in the backyard still flickered, a reminder of the boundary I'd set. I didn't look back as I walked to my car, the gift's ashes scattered behind me. Michael's voice called faintly from the house, a mix of anger and desperation, but it didn't reach me. Amanda's laughter was gone, Mother's silence heavier than ever. Noah's sudden attention was too late. Ryan's quiet presence offered no bridge now. I slid into the driver's seat, the engine humming softly as I pulled away. The city lights of Austin stretched ahead, and for the first time that night, I felt free, not just from them, but from the version of myself that had clung to their validation. As I drove, the weight lifted, replaced by a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. This wasn't the end, but a beginning. The email confirmation glowed on my phone, a quiet testament to my choice. They'd underestimated me, but that was their mistake. I'd given them my all, and they'd given me nothing. Now I'd choose myself. The road ahead was open, and I was ready to see where it led. Sunlight filtered through my apartment blinds, casting long shadows across the kitchen table where my coffee sat cooling in its mug. The events of last night replayed in my mind, the fires crackle, the emails buzz, the shocked faces around the table. I'd driven home in silence, the Austin streets quiet under holiday calm, feeling lighter than I had in years. No regrets lingered, only a steady resolve. As I sipped the now lukewarm brew, my phone lit up with a message from Jessica Monroe, Michael's ex-wife. "Sarah, it's Jessica. Michael has been using you for years, your money, your time, without any real thanks. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." Her words hit like a confirmation I hadn't sought but needed. Jessica had been married to Michael for a decade before their split, witnessing his patterns up close, the charm masking entitlement, the way he leaned on others without reciprocity. I stared at the screen, the text, a sharp lens on the truth I'd long ignored. Michael hadn't just overlooked me, he'd built his facade on my sacrifices, and I'd allowed it. The message wasn't a surprise, but it validated the ache I'd carried, turning last night's action from impulse to necessity. I set the phone down, letting the quiet of my space envelop me. The apartment felt different now, less like a refuge from family obligations and more like a starting point. No calls had come yet from Michael or the others, but I knew they would. For now, I savored the peace, reflecting on how far I'd come in one evening. The investment withdrawn, the contract ashes, these were steps toward reclaiming what I'd given away too freely. Vai Tuan Sao, the news broke. I was scrolling through a local Austin business journal on my laptop when the headline caught my eye, a stark announcement that Michael's startup had collapsed. Without my $600,000, other backers pulled away, suppliers bailed, and clients evaporated. The article detailed the rapid downfall, cold and factual, labeling it bankruptcy. I read it slowly, the words sinking in without triumph or sorrow, just acceptance. This was the natural consequence of his choices, not mine. That same day, my phone rang, Michael's name flashing. I answered, curious more than anything. His voice was strained, almost unrecognizable from the confident boom of Christmas. "Sarah, I'm sorry," he rushed out, words tumbling. "I didn't mean to take you for granted. Can we talk? I need your help." The plea hung there, laced with desperation. I listened, my heart unmoved, no longer swayed by his familiar tone. "No," I replied, calm and firm. "You made your choices. I'm done." I ended the call, the silence, following like a closed door. The apartment filled with a new quiet one of finality. Jessica's message had prepared me, her insight, a buffer against any lingering doubt. I'd spent years chasing their approval, thinking support equaled belonging. But now, with the startup in ruins and Michael's apology too late, I saw the pattern clearly. It wasn't my role to fix them anymore. The funds I'd once funneled their way now sat untouched, ready for a purpose that served me. As days blended, I turned inward, organizing my space, packing away holiday remnants I'd bought for their gathering ceiling boxes with a sense of release. Austin hummed outside my window, its energy inviting rather than overwhelming. The bankruptcy news faded from headlines, but its echo reinforced my boundary. No more calls came begging. Perhaps they'd accepted, or maybe pride held them back. Either way, I didn't wait for them. Jessica's words lingered as a quiet anchor, reminding me I wasn't alone in seeing the truth. Her decade with Michael had shown her the same disregard, and her reaching out felt like validation from someone who understood. I didn't reply immediately, but her message stayed a small light in the aftermath. With the chapter closed, I looked ahead, the remaining savings, a canvas for something new, something mine. The coffee warmed in a fresh cup as I sat planning. The startup's fall wasn't revenge. It was justice, quiet and self-imposed. I'd chosen freedom over obligation, and in that choice found strength I hadn't known. A few weeks after Christmas in Austin, Texas, when I was 36 years old, I donated the remaining money. The glow of my laptop screen filled my Austin apartment, the quiet hum of evening settling around me. The news of Michael's startup collapse had faded from the headlines, but its echo lingered as I sat at my desk researching. The $400,000 left in my savings, once earmarked for family emergencies, now demanded a purpose that aligned with me, not them. I'd spent days scouring options, driven by a need to redirect what I'd given so freely. A scholarship fund for women in technology caught my eye, a program lifting up those often overlooked in a field dominated by others. It felt right, like a mirror to my own unseen efforts. I typed the transfer details, naming the grant after myself, the Sarah Jenkins Scholarship. $400,000 moved with a click the confirmation email arriving moments later. This wasn't about recognition. It was about impact, about giving others the chance I'd fought for, a space to be seen. Days later, my phone rang. The fund's director, her voice warm with gratitude, thanked me personally. "Your gift will change lives," she said, mentioning a single mother studying cybersecurity who'd already benefited. I listened, a spark of pride igniting one I hadn't felt in years. This was my choice, my work, not theirs. My phone buzzed again over the next days, but not with calls I wanted. Mother left hesitant voicemails, her tone soft, asking me to come by to talk. "Sarah, dear, let's not let this linger," she said, her words trailing off. Amanda sent a text, half apologetic, half defensive. "You made your point, but was it necessary?" Noah stayed silent, his absence as loud as ever. I didn't respond to any of them. Each unanswered message felt like a brick in the wall I was building, not out of anger, but clarity. I'd poured myself empty for them. Now I'd protect what I had left. The apartment became a haven, no longer cluttered with reminders of their expectations. I boxed up the holiday decorations I'd bought for their party, each sealed box lightening my load. Austin's skyline glimmered outside its energy, a quiet invitation to start anew. I enrolled in a coding boot camp, something I'd always wanted but never prioritized. The first sessions were daunting, lines of syntax swimming on my screen late into the night, but the challenge felt alive, purposeful. I joined a local women's tech group, their meetings buzzing with shared ambition. For the first time, I connected with people who saw me, not my wallet. The fund sent updates, each one a small victory. A letter arrived from the single mother, handwritten and earnest, thanking me for her chance to build a future. I read it one evening, the words sinking in as I sat by my window. This was what mattered, impact over applause. Michael's bankruptcy, their shock, their belated pleas, they were fading echoes of a life I'd left behind. Mother's voicemails grew less frequent, Amanda's text unanswered, Noah's silence unchanged. Ryan sent a kind message checking in, but even his warmth couldn't bridge the gap I'd set. The coding boot camp pushed me its late-night assignments a new rhythm. The women's tech group became a space of camaraderie, their stories echoing my own drive. My apartment filled with books and plants, symbols of a life I was shaping for myself. The scholarship fund's impact grew its updates, a reminder of the choice I'd made. I didn't block my family, but I didn't reach out either. Their calls and texts were remnants of a past I no longer needed. As I sat at my desk, the city lights reflecting in the glass, I felt a quiet strength. The justice wasn't loud or vengeful. It was in the boundaries I'd drawn, the purpose I'd found. I'd given Michael everything once, but now I gave myself more. The scholarship, the coding, the new connections, they were mine, built on my terms. The night stretched on Austin alive beyond my window, and I knew I was no longer chasing anyone's approval. After Christmas in Austin, Texas, when I was 36, I started building a new life. The soft hum of my laptop filled the apartment as I dove into another coding session, the screen's glow casting a steady light in the dim evening. The boot camp assignments challenged me, loops and functions twisting like puzzles, but each solved line brought a quiet thrill, a sense of progress I'd missed for years. Outside my window, Austin's lights twinkled the city, a canvas of possibility rather than obligation. The scholarship fund's updates arrived sporadically, each one a reminder of the shift I'd made. One letter from the single mother in cybersecurity detailed how the grant had allowed her to continue her studies, her words warm with gratitude. I read it slowly, the impact sinking in, affirming that my choice had rippled outward. Ryan's message came one afternoon, a simple check-in, "Hope you're doing well." His kindness was genuine, but it didn't pull me back to the old dynamics. I replied briefly, appreciating the gesture without inviting more. The others, Mother Amanda Noah, faded into silence. No more voicemails or texts arrived, their absence, a space I filled with my own rhythm. I didn't block them, but I didn't reach out either, letting the distance settle like a natural boundary. The women's tech group became a weekly anchor, their meetings buzzing with shared stories and encouragement. We gathered in a local cafe or online, discussing projects and hurdles, each voice valued in a way I'd never felt at family tables. Plants now lined my shelves, books on coding stacked nearby, turning my apartment into a reflection of me, not a holding place for others' needs. Late nights blurred into productive focus, the challenge of learning, reigniting a drive I'd set aside. Looking back, the Christmas night stood as a turning point etched in every choice since. The fires crackle, the emails send, the shocked faces, they marked the end of one-sided sacrifice. Family wasn't about emptying myself for those who didn't reciprocate. It was mutual respect, a lesson I'd learned the hard way. I'd chased their approval, believing love meant giving all my funds, my time, my heart. But true care didn't demand erasure. Self-respect meant choosing my path, not theirs. When I burned the contract and walked away, I wasn't just severing ties with Michael. I was embracing myself. The scholarship, the coding, the new connections they built, a family of choice, one that saw my worth. Austin's skyline stretched before me, my reflection steady in the glass, and I knew I'd found where I belonged, not in their shadows, but in my own light. The city lights of Austin flickered like stars, a quiet end to the journey I'd begun that Christmas night. The pain of being overlooked had transformed into strength, teaching me that true belonging comes from within, not from those who take without giving back. Self-respect isn't selfish, it's essential, a boundary that protects and empowers. If you've ever felt invisible in your own story, what step did you take to change it? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear. And if this resonated, subscribe for more tales of quiet resilience.